Listen, job number one for alternative asset managers is raising capital, but there are sticking points. See, raising money from friends and family, it's okay, but you will struggle to hit the big leagues until you can pitch family offices and have them trust you with their billions. This episode is going to showcase a community of family offices that have said they are hungry for deals and what you can do to connect with them on your way to making billions. All this and more coming right now. Here we go. Hey, welcome to another episode of Making Billions. I'm your host, Ryan Miller, and today I have my dear friend, Michael Wang. Michael is the founder and CEO of Prometheus, an invite-only platform connecting billion-dollar family offices with each other and tailor investment opportunities. He served as the managing partner at Cypress Funds, one of the oldest hedge funds still in existence. Previously, Michael was a founding principal and the Generalist Head at Tourbillon Capital, where he helped to grow the hedge fund to $2 billion before leading Cypress. Prior to Tourbillon, he spent 5 years as a senior analyst at SAC Capital, and that was one of my favorite shows, the inspiration for the TV show Billions. So he was able to help it grow to one of the largest, most successful portfolios in the game. Michael has been featured and quoted in Bloomberg, Forbes, Fortune, Business Insider, Entrepreneur, MarketWatch, and Institutional Investor. So what does this mean? Well, it means that Michael understands how to raise capital the right way, and he's about to teach you and I the fundamental differences between raising capital as an amateur versus raising capital like the pros. So, Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor to be here right now, and been a big fan of the show for ages, and you've built quite a community here. So I'm excited to chat with you, Ryan.
Yeah, man, it's been a privilege. I know you and I, we've gotten to know each other for quite some time now, and we've been able to chop it up. I'm so impressed in what you've built with Prometheus and how you're bringing family offices together. And I mean, folks, these aren't, I won't steal your thunder here, Michael, but these are some of the areas, these are some of the family offices that are a big deal. These are the ones that people like me would drool over to get in front of. And so you've put together something so impressive, and I am very excited to get into it. When it comes to, say, starting a fund, launching, marketing, raising capital, there's so much that has to go into it. What would you say are some key elements on putting some early points on the board?
Sure. I think number one, just getting in that mind frame that marketing should be, quite frankly, as much of a focus as building your actual portfolio and spending time researching stocks or whatever asset class that you're trading. One thing that people don't realize is that there is actually no correlation between positive performance and AUM. I.e., just because you're up 100% this year doesn't mean people are going to throw money at you. In fact, it may actually be the opposite, right? Because returns are mean reverting. Of course, there's 100% correlation between negative returns and AUM. I.e., if you lose money consistently, nobody's going to give you money. All right. So what does that mean is that the biggest funds actually spend quite a bit of time on marketing, quite a bit of resources on marketing. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I've heard that Pershing Square has a marketing or an IR team twice as big as their actual investment teams, because that's a man that obviously understands the importance of AUM, right, of marketing. And so I think that's one important thing to keep in mind is spend a lot of time, spend a lot of resources on that marketing function. The second thing I want to touch on is how important it is to build relationships first. Take the time to establish trust and credibility before you even think about asking for money in the first place. So I would say, think of fundraising like chess. You know, the pitch, your actual formal pitch, is not your opening move. It's your power play at the end after you've put all the pieces together, right? In fact, your first move comes probably months before any formal pitch. And what I mean by that is this, establish that credibility by doing things like writing blogs, writing newsletters, posting content. If you're fortunate enough, getting invited by Ryan Miller to go on Making Billions. So what you want to do is you want to establish that credibility, that reputation before you even go into the pitch. One example is, I could give you actually a real world example. When I was running Cypress, which is the last hedge fund that I ran, I had an analyst, I had a person interview to be an analyst for me. This kid was smart. What he did was he put me on his distribution list where every single day he'd write about his thoughts about the market, thoughts about the macro, pitch stock ideas. Every time one of his companies reported earnings, not only would he summarize the earnings, but he'd more importantly give his insights into what this meant for the stock. You know, I followed him and his content for a good year. He comes to me right after a year. He's like, "Hey, Mike, I'm starting a hedge fund. And I said, I'm going to stop you right there. I want to be your first check. Because unbeknownst to you, I've already made money. I built trust in you through your content, right? And I've been putting a lot of your ideas in our own portfolio. We've made a lot of money on them. So I'd be more than happy to invest in you. So, and it's because he took the time. He did something very unique, right? He built that credibility and that trust with his content. And those are the type of things that you can do to establish that credibility, essentially.
Yeah, wow. There's so much to unpack, and thank you for very accurately and simply just describing exactly what it is. On the show, and Michael, you know this, you've been hanging out with me for a bit, but on the show, I always talk about reputation, relationships, and results. And I'm picturing this young kid standing in front of you, going through the interview to get the job, just out of school. But what he did, instead of going for this big play, there's something that this is just my own, the gospel of Ryan for those of you who don't want to listen to it and shouldn't, but for those of you who are still listening, I always say that consistency beats intensity. And so for this guy, this young kid who I'm sure is looking for a job, he's doing interviews, but he never missed a day, I assume. He never missed a day, or he was very consistent over a long period of time. So yeah, he didn't get the analyst role, which for those of you who are in the industry, it's entry level. You're not rolling in the dough or anything, but it's a good foot in the door. And he never got it. But what did he do? He actually leveled up, and he was able to, with Michael, to demonstrate his results. And Michael got results from his results, meaning that kid's result is saying, I actually have a pretty good insight, a finger on the pulse of the market. Therefore, here's my call. And then you make some money off of some of those. And now you're like, I trust this guy. So then he goes from, maybe I didn't get the job, but I got an investor on my own hedge fund. That's probably 10 times bigger than what he ever would have gotten had he gotten that job. So the power of being consistent over being intense, and the power of just building relationships of trust. Like you said, the pitch is not your opening move, it's your power move, because you have so many things that have to be in place. And just like that young kid with you, it was building relationships of trust. It's showcasing your results. It's focusing and staying in contact with your newsletter or whatever it is, just some way of keeping people in your orbit. Anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't even think he made a formal pitch to me. And that's the magic of it all, right? Because by the time he told me that he was starting his own fund, I already knew his thought process, right? I already knew how he thought about the markets and how talented he was. So I actually asked to invest. That's the magic of it all, right?
And the real capital raisers do exactly what that young kid did to you, isn't it? They make them come to you. When you're in a position, and that's what we talk about with the 3 R's, is those are your most valuable assets. And as you invest in those, however you do it, eventually investors are going to start coming to you and say, hey, what do you got for me? I trust you. I think you have a really good grip on your sector. I've got a few bucks. I'd love to go in with you. Like that's the ultimate power move. And so it's not enough, folks, to be a capital raiser who's constantly just hitting up friends and family, fools and followers. You got to position yourself where investors come to you. And Michael illustrated exactly one of those great ways to do it. I absolutely love it. Now, it's not enough to win. We were talking before I hit the record button about some downside risks that exist in almost every deal and mitigating those. Yes, I really do talk like this when the camera's off. I do talk about risk mitigation. I'm a knockout at parties. It's super fun. In all seriousness, though, I'm totally joking. In all seriousness, there are some ways to get your butt kicked, get wiped out in the game. You've been in the game for a long time. You're a vet. You've worked with some of the best minds in the industry. What would you suggest to people as far as some cautionary tales of what to look out for, of just how do you not lose? How do you cover your ass?
That's a great question. I think first things first should be fairly obvious, but you do see it occur pretty often, which is don't ever lie, cheat, or steal about your results. So anything that you put in a pitch deck, make sure that you have the right legal counsel to review it. You do not want the SEC to come knocking on your door. And by the way, they see everything. I don't know what software or whatever AI they use. It's pretty darn good. So don't think that you can, skate by them. Number 2, I think is very important is if you are starting a fund, whatever it is that you pitch, whatever your strategy is, stick to it. Stick to that strategy. Be careful with thesis creep. So if you're a long short equity tech investor, don't invest in an auto OEM, no matter how good you think that idea is, because if the investors actually wanted industrials exposure, they'd find the best industrials fund that they could find. not allocate their industrials exposure to a tech fund. So that's number two. And I would say number three, which is very important to do, find whatever it is that makes you special. Whatever edge that is, whether it's your experience, it's your track record, it's your network. Maybe you have a unique board of advisors. Maybe you do a podcast like Making Billions, where you speak to a lot of smart people and you have sort of interesting access to interesting people with great ideas, right? Like that's edge. And whatever edge that is, you really have to key in on that, because just know that if you're starting a hedge fund or venture fund or private equity fund or a real estate fund, there are 30,000 guys like you, right, that you're competing against. So think about how you could stand out.
And standout is something that you've done. You've created something pretty cool. So I want to, you've been so nice, but I want to make sure that people really understand how big of a deal you are, not just from the lead-in that we did earlier in the show, but also what you're doing right now. So folks, if there's anybody that personifies the importance of trust and relationships and access and how all of that ties into finance, it's Michael. It's this conversation right now. You've done all that. And those are nice, fancy words, but you've encapsulated that into this technology, this community called Prometheus. Maybe you can walk me through a little bit of what inspired you to create it and what is Prometheus?
Sure. I'll start with the latter question. In a nutshell, Prometheus is a tech-enabled community of family offices. And all we do at the end of the day is make warm intros to connect family offices on one side of the fence with interesting, relevant investment opportunities on the other side of the fence, right? And so how did I get here? How did I pivot from this world of finance, from this hedge fund world, from Wall Street to essentially, I guess, Silicon Valley? Well, the reality is I've actually been building Prometheus without realizing it for years. I think I've always had a natural instinct for solving problems through meaningful connections. And so whether someone needed help fundraising or was looking for a filmmaker to document their family history, I found a lot of satisfaction in making these relevant introductions. And what dawned on me was that this sort of talent for connecting people and solving their problems by connecting them to the right person so could actually evolve into something bigger, something that I could potentially monetize. I decided to leave the hedge fund world a few years ago to sort of really pursue this idea essentially. And, specifically with family offices, how I built out this Rolodex of families was when I started working at Cypress and running Cypress, my partner was a guy named Robert Day. Robert Day was the founder of Cypress, and that, by the way, that fund was founded in 1969, which makes it likely the oldest hedge fund still in existence. He was a very prominent person in Los Angeles, LA royalty. If you go to LA, you'll see some buildings with his name on it, for instance. And he was the one that introduced me to a lot of his veterans, and we're talking about folks like Charlie Munger and Michael Milken and stuff like that I would be able to meet at some of Robert's dinner parties. And I ran Cypress with Robert for about 5 years. Throughout that period of time, I just really developed a large network of family offices, and that's really how I built that network of families, was introducing them to each other, quite frankly. And then what would happen is founders would then ask me, hey, you know all these families, can you make intros for me? And I was more than happy to make intros. I had a day job running a hedge fund. But then I realized these intros actually led to billions of dollars of assets that were raised that I got paid nothing on. And so I figured, I got to figure a way to monetize this network. And so that was really the genesis of me sort of pivoting from the hedge fund world, of which I've been very grateful for having been a part of, to building Prometheus and doing a startup.
That's brilliant. So you mentioned that through Prometheus provide warm intros. So do people just come to you? Maybe they have a cool deal and they want to build a multifamily, or they have they want to go mine asteroids in outer space, whatever. And then through you, I'm sure there's some fees involved or anything. And then they're able to get tapped into that network, like you said, that you've been able to build during your times having dinner with some well-known names. Is that a little bit how that works?
Yeah. So thus far, we've been primarily operating via a white glove service. So companies, now these could be founders, they could be fund managers, they could be sports team owners. They come to us essentially to get a ton of warm introductions to our Rolodex of family offices. And generally with every single client, within probably about a month, they'll get anywhere from 75 to 100 warm intros to the wealthiest families in the world. So we inundate them with not just high quality intros, but the quantity just blows them away. It's game changing. It's life changing for most of these folks. So that's the white glove service. However, we've experienced so much demand that I just manually cannot fulfill that demand. I cannot do 100 warm intros for 30 clients at a time. I don't have the capacity to do that. And so a number of months ago, we started building technology, essentially an app, to help scale and mimic what we do manually with these warm intros and basically scale up digitally, where essentially almost auto generates these intros. And that will be a service that we'll be launching fairly shortly. We've already built the platform. I'll be inviting my first set of family offices over the course of the next few weeks. And it will be a lot more cost efficient for clients, founders, fund managers, sports team owners, etc. Then obviously the white glove, because it's done through the tech.
Brilliant. And why would you say, since we're saying fundraising through relationships, why would you say raising capital through relationships is better than the constant LinkedIn inbox spray and pray emails that people are asking me to invest in things that I clearly don't invest in? Why is relationships the better way to go for a capital raiser?
Yeah, something like LinkedIn that you brought up. What LinkedIn is it's a cold intro platform. It's a cold outreach platform. It's quite frankly full of spam and solicitation, right? I mean, I don't know how many connections I have on LinkedIn, 10,000, 12,000, whatever it is. I don't know most of these people. Quite frankly, there's close to 0% probability that if you LinkedIn me, that I'm actually going to take a meeting with you. Now, contrast that with what we're doing at Prometheus. Either the warm intros that I do manually or the warm intros through our platform. Those are all warm intros. And by the way, on the tech side of things, it still looks and feels like a warm intro from me, except I didn't actually manually have to type it out, And our goal at the end of the day is just to put buyer and seller together so that they can take that conversation offline, hopefully meet in person or through a Zoom call or whatever it is, right? But as you know, warm intros have 10 to 20x higher conversion than cold outreach. Like Ryan, if you introduce me to somebody, no matter who it is, there's a 100% chance I'm going to meet with them.
Yep.
Contrast that to somebody who cold outreaches me on LinkedIn or email. There's close to 0% chance that I'm going to meet with them, right? And so the way to go is warm intros, which will lead to relationships. Because you can't build a relationship if the other person is not willing to meet you, obviously, right? But it really, at the end of the day, unless you're Elon Musk or Peter Thiel, people generally aren't going to give you money sight unseen. They need to build trust in you. You need to establish credibility, and that takes time.
Brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I'm a firm believer as well, that, in raising capital through relationships. I've said it before, but I think we need to underscore this, that launching a fund, for example, a lot of people want to do funds. It's fine. Do whatever you think. But you cannot take this cold, hard look like a wooden thing that you look at. It's just a series of steps, and pretty soon I'll be a billionaire in 18 months. Really what this is you have to build the relationships first. This is my opinion. Feel free to disagree or agree. You have to build the relationships first, get the connections, showcase that you're trustworthy, showcase that you can produce results, and then go launch a fund, and you move all of that trust, relationship, all of that capital you built, push it through your fund structure. So I think what happens is, where people tend to make mistakes, is they get that backwards. So they have the if I build it, they will come, and often that's not the case. So when you flip it, if you want to do it right, you want to raise capital correctly. And I mean, we got Michael here who's done a lot of that, has managed hedge funds and talked to some of the most brilliant minds in finance. But I think building up that relationship, reputation, and results, building those three things together. And then once that reaches critical mass, and for me, when that happened is when people start bringing you money and they say, do you have anything for me? I heard about this deal or that. Once you're there, that to me is the first clue that it's time to, just like you did with Prometheus, it's time to formalize these relationships and actually put them in a vehicle, because people want my oversight with their capital. Sure, I can serve that up. Anything else to add to that?
I do have something to add, which is this, that it may seem like what I'm doing at Prometheus tech and community family offices is totally different than what I did for actually most of my career, which is being a hedge fund manager. But the reality is is that the grind and that experience that I had as a hedge fund manager over a period of 15 years on Wall Street or whatever it was, is establishes a lot of credibility for me. That's why when I speak to people, if I was raising money for Prometheus, which I was a few years ago when I was raising my seed round, like I always led with my experience as a hedge fund manager, right? And that adds immediate credibility. So take time, quite frankly, to build experience, right? And the more experience you have, the more credibility you'll have. Right. And then hopefully by then you'll have a reputation so that, by the time that you actually do go out to fundraise, or whether it's a company or it's a fund, that your reputation will precede you.
Brilliant. I take pride in asking to leave behind some of your best advice, most competitive advantages that you can provide for our listeners. Maybe one or two competitive advantages that you can provide. What would you say?
Actually, there are a couple of things that we've already touched on, which is, number one, it's very important to learn how to sell. Selling is everything. And quite frankly, the key to selling is actually to not sell. The reality is people are not stupid. They generally know and are aware when they are being sold something, and quite frankly, they don't like it, right? So again, going back to you sell by offering insights, by providing value first. Provide value first before you extract value from folks, right? And so that's certainly one thing. And by the way, whether you're a fund manager or you're doing starting a software company, like that's why the freemium model exists in software. These companies want you to test out their software so you know how good it is, right? Before they ask for your money. I would say the second thing is something that you know very well, which is network. For me, I take every meeting, and I take all meetings for the reason that any single meeting can lead to, whether it's meeting Stevie Cohen or meeting Robert Day, those all came some mutual warm introduction, and a meeting that I didn't know was going to lead anywhere. That changed my life, right? And so that's one thing. It's definitely network, follow up, build those relationships. It's vastly important. The third thing I would touch on is learn from others' mistakes and learn from others who are successful, right? I can't remember who said this. I think it may have been Warren Buffett or something like that, that said, a clever man solves a problem while a wise man avoids it, right? And so you learn how to avoid problems by listening to podcasts like Making Billions, reading books, autobiographies of people who have done it, who have made those mistakes already. So it's important to keep on growing and learning by consuming this type of content.
Yeah, you bring up something that was very interesting to me before we hit record, and I'd love to pull that one forward, which is about, and you've kind of alluded to it, is I always say, don't start a relationship by asking for something, right? And you said, just make sure you offer value as one of your points there. Do you have any examples of when that happened? If you've dealt with any family offices or anything around the world, maybe open that up a little bit about how the mistake that people make when they're too aggressive and they open a meeting and I'm all business and here's what it is. This is what I need. Please fund me my 5 million or 500 million. What's your insight of just opening? You talked about chess, just opening that new relationship. How do you approach that? What would you advise people to do as far as opening up and trying to start a relationship that they've literally have no grounds to start? How do they do it?
Do more listening than the talking in that initial meeting. Learn about what problems that person needs to get solved and help them solve that problem. For me, it's all right. My thought is almost every single problem in the world can be solved by being connected to the right person to solve them. Or the reason why I'm building Prometheus, right? It's a warm intro platform to solve your problems, essentially. And so that's how you do it, is just start offering introductions. That's how I built out my network of family offices in the first place, is literally finding one big family or two big families, right? Start there, start small, and start solving their problems by connecting with people that can solve their problems. And they keep on doing that. And then they go, wow, this guy's really well connected. Oh my goodness, he just introduced me to somebody who invests in my company or whatever it is. I got to do him back a solid, and introduce him to other folks in my network. So the more you give, quite frankly, the more you get. And maybe that's karma. Maybe that's the universe. But absolutely, in that first meeting or in the first initial set of meetings, think about how you could help the other person. trust me, they're going to remember that, and they're going to give it back to you in multiples potentially.
Got it. So as we wrap things up, is there anything else you'd like to say? How do people contact Prometheus? What kind of contacts do you welcome for Prometheus? Anything at all?
You could visit our website, PrometheusAlts.com, and submit a deal there. If you have an interesting deal, I always love reviewing interesting deals. Or you can hit me up on I guess, LinkedIn, but make sure to say, hey, I'm a listener of Ryan's podcast, so that it becomes more of a warm referral, if you will, and we can connect that way.
Brilliant. So it sounds like people, if they have deals, they can submit deals, and if those are accepted, then there might be some introductions that follow from Prometheus. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. All right. So all of you people raising capital out there, who isn't? Anyone listening to this show is probably in some part of their raise. But if you've got some good deals and you need access in a concentrated dose to family offices, check out Prometheus. I know they gave the website. Check out Prometheus for those. So just to summarize everything, learn to sell properly, which is really just to provide value more than just trying to extract it. The other thing that Michael said for a competitive advantage is just network as much as you can. Please don't miss out on that. And I'm going to put my full weight behind what Michael said there. You have to build the relationships, the upfront work, the prep work that you have to launch your business. Do not underestimate that. That was your first thing, is when you talked about Pershing Square and how much marketing goes into it, which is just helping people know what you're all about and what you're trying to do. Make sure that it's not below you. Make sure that you do your marketing, build those relationships. It's some of the best things you can do. And then learn from others' mistakes, right? Show some wisdom. You don't have to be out there ready, fire, aim. Show that you can learn from it. And then finally, listen a lot. Solve people's problems and just build those trusting relationships. You do these things and you too will be well on your way in your pursuit of making billions.